Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Zeal or No Zeal. Today, up on the chopping block is Xeodrifter, a short Metroidvania title about a spaceman lost in space. Does this charming title do enough to excite? Find out in this episode of Zeal or No Zeal. Xeodrifter is an incredibly simple game. The story is straight to the point, and there's little done with the story to captivate an audience. It features 4 different planets to explore, all of which are riddled with enemies and upgrades for my character. The world designs are simple, yet they're different enough to keep me engaged. Realistically though, there's little draw to the story or the world building. The enemy designs don't have a lot in common with the environments, and none of the areas really have that distinct vibe or feeling. Nothing was overly unique. While the atmosphere did not facilitate different experiences, this could also be largely influenced by the gameplay. Since Xeodrifter is a Metroidvania, I needed to visit and revisit locations while learning and unlocking new upgrades. The upgrades were incredibly simple though. Some allowed me to propel myself with rockets, while another gave me a more powerful attack. They're not overly complex, but these upgrades are fun to experiment with, and they made the game better. Sure, I understand how to use these mechanics as soon as I got them, and yes, there was not much of a skill curve. Yet regardless, I enjoyed blazing through sections of stages with the dash move, and had fun climbing my way up to the sky with those rocket boots. These new upgrades were fun, and the main character felt good to control. Unfortunately, despite enjoying exploration with my main character, the worlds themselves were not so fun to navigate. Almost every area was a tight corridor. This meant I didn't have much freedom in my actions, and I often had to replay experiences identically when revisiting areas. It got tedious. While there were branching paths occasionally, I had to explore everything anyways, so it never really felt like exploration. The game has 4 different planets, and I could explore any of them at any point. This initially excited me, but the planets had to be completed in a specific order. Even within a planet, I had to follow a certain path. This didn't make the game bad, but it differed from the experience that I was anticipating. This was further expanded because of the map. Overall, it was very helpful. It showed the locations and whether I explored them fully. It didn't show the power-ups that I had to collect on the map, but this didn't really disappoint me. Where it was lacking was that I couldn't label why I couldn't get to a certain area. Thus, sometimes I went through an entire area looking to find a solution to one of the previously restricted areas, only to realize that I didn't unlock that power-up yet. Then, I had to go back and go to a different planet to progress. This was tedious too, and I was even further frustrated replaying areas when it didn't lead to any new progression. I liked the map, and undoubtedly it was very helpful, but considering how linear the game feels, I wanted Xeodrifter to nudge me more in the proper direction with a better map. I also want to discuss the enemies. Though relatively simple, the enemies were fun to take out. There were some enemies that dropped bombs, others that walked linearly, and some that shot massive lasers. They were easy to circumvent, especially after fighting them a couple times, but this wasn't a bad thing. I often had to travel long distances from checkpoint to checkpoint. I think the difficulty of the game was actually at a good level, and the enemies were the most important part of that. The boss fight, on the other hand, is not so good. I had to fight this same boss repeatedly. I didn't like that at all, and I found myself getting tired of it. However, the different fights did always incorporate at least one new strategy to make the boss stronger. This was fun, and while it was never the most exciting fight, I still enjoyed playing through it. I did feel rewarded when I took out the boss. The enemies as a whole were fun to take out, and I enjoyed fighting through the waves of them, even though they didn't revolutionize the Metroidvania genre. Finally, I want to discuss the weaponry. I had a gun, and that was my primary weapon for the entire game. As I got closer to the end, I unlocked the Charging Blast too, which supplemented my arsenal. Both guns could only be fired straight, so it was a bit inconvenient to aim, but this was not an issue overall. These were fine weapons. Xeogunner also incorporates gun upgrades. I had a selection of different ways to alter my projectile. They were quite interesting. Specifically, they incorporated upgrades to make my shots swing like a sine curve. This was cool, because now I could hit stuff below me or a little bit above me. I could also increase my fire rate or the bullet size. It was a simple addition, but something I enjoyed, especially because I could choose where I wanted my upgrades. Overall, Xeogunner is a fun game. I liked playing through it, and I enjoyed exploring the planets, even though there's some tedium associated with it. However, liking a game is not enough for me to want to reach out and recommend it. Xeogunner did not meet that mark. I think the game's fun, but it does not incite zeal. Thank you so much for watching.